Hey guys, we're back for another Whiteboard Wednesday. Actually, I'm filming this on Thursday, but what we'd like to do is just kind of take it back to the basics. We want to tell you a little bit about cloud computing and just kind of answer the question, why cloud? So, Jake, I was hoping you could help explain maybe the difference between sort of how things were done in the old world, maybe 10 years ago, with physical hardware and installing it. I know you've had a lot of experience in that,
right,
as well as the virtual and cloud side. So maybe you could tell people a little bit about the difference between old and then new, the cloud. So we'll call it Throwback Thursday. How about that?
Nice. That's
right.
clever.
Cool, man. All right, dude. Well, take it away. I'll just kind of jot some notes as you talk, but maybe just talk a little bit about the hardware, the network, maybe the scalability, and some of the differences there.
Right. So let's develop a use case here. So I need a web server. What are my steps to go out and get that?
Okay.
In the old world, I would have to start thinking about hardware.
Okay.
So hardware involves power. It involves CPU. It involves memory. It involves contacting a supply company to find that specific hardware.
Sounds like a lot of work.
It is. On top of that, I have my operating system. So what operating system am I going to run this on?
Sure.
Is it going to be Windows? Is it going to be a Linux operating system? On top of that, I have my web platform. So is this going to be Apache? Is this going to be Microsoft's IIS?
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot of decisions around that as well.
Sure.
And then moving on to, back to the hardware portion, I got to think, okay, am I going to need battery backup for this? Am I going to need dual power to my server? So a primary and a backup power?
Right. We're going to run out of whiteboard today, I think. What other things do you need to consider?
Well, we have to have some sort of idea for our web server that, how much traffic are we really going to generate, and we need to plan for the maximum amount of traffic, because if we hit that ceiling, then our clients or prospective clients are going to be getting timeouts or whatever for our web page.
Yeah. How much time would you say goes into planning something like that for a typical one server type of deal in the old world?
Yeah. So planning is weeks.
Right.
So
just the planning, one server, right?
Just the planning stage, and then you've got to wait for the hardware to show up, and then you've got to put your OS and your platform on there, and then your developers have to get on there and put the content up, and then finally we can do some testing and make sure it's good to go. So
okay,
lots goes into it. So,
sure.
But
let's talk about how that compares to kind of the cloud and why maybe you might want to consider doing the cloud if you're a business that wants to grow fast or perform, maybe higher than a company that's using the old way.
Right. So the data center that the cloud lives in, or data centers, so you have multiple data centers all over the country that your website server could live at. That is all taken care of by the data center.
Yep.
So hardware, power, network, that's all there for you. You don't have to do any planning. You just have to choose your cloud provider.
So let's take data center, and I'll add network down here. Or would that fall under hardware up here?
It can be separate. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's and when I think network, not just the hardware underneath it, but the actual bandwidth out to the internet.
So this is taken care of by provider.
Yeah. So your provider will be upgrading the hardware as needed. They'll be maintaining hard drives and storage for you, so you don't have to worry about any of that.
Okay.
The operating system, typically when you go out looking for Windows, there's licensing costs and stuff that you have to manage, and sometimes they'll want to sell you a bundle, and then you have to manage all the software that you probably don't need.
Right.
With a cloud provider, normally they'll have what they call service provider licensing agreements. So you just pay monthly for that licensing rather than having to purchase the licenses and then bring them on. Now some enterprise providers do want to bring their own licensing. So there are some BYO licensing options out there.
Okay.
But typically people, when they move to the cloud, or they've got a startup or a SaaS type company, they don't want to have to worry about all that licensing. And when they want to push off the management and the planning around the hardware and stuff, they want to push off the management of the licensing as well. So there's a lot of management around that as well.
Okay. So with the old world, it's kind of like OS, buy your own.
Yep.
Install and manage.
Yep.
Buy, install, and manage. And in here, this is kind of more like lease.
Mm-hmm.
You're almost leasing the OS.
Lease or rent the OS.
Yeah, rent OS. And it's fully managed, right? With most cloud hosting providers.
Right, and if you go away from the cloud, if you move to another cloud provider, that you don't have to worry about the fact that you own that licensing, and that licensing that you bought has to fit into your new cloud provider that you move to.
Okay, so there's no sunk cost there, is kind of what you're saying.
Right.
If you make the switch on down the road, it gives you more flexibility in terms of your business planning.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense.
So platform.
Uh-huh.
A lot of cloud providers will have platforms already set up for you.
Okay.
So you just have to make the decision about what do my developers develop on, what type of platform.
So they're already set up, and they've already kind of been optimized, right, for whatever environment they're running in?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's kind of just, all right, what do you want to use, and you pick out of almost like a service catalog type of a thing.
Right.
And they can set it up just like that?
Yep.
Okay.
So network, if I was hosting a website at my office, I have to keep in mind that my users are using that same bandwidth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we've got a lot of clients hitting our website and making orders, my employees are probably working more as well. So that bandwidth is going to be saturated even more. With the cloud type model, these data centers have huge pipes into their data centers from the internet. So, you can scale up and down as much as you need without having to worry about, being over bandwidth or overtaxed on that bandwidth.
So you're saying in the old world there's kind of limited network, and then cloud there's really just no limits.
Yeah.
Virtually no limits.
Right. So the no limits thing can extend to, can my virtual machine in the cloud handle all of that traffic? So am I going to have enough CPU and RAM? And the answer is, yeah, we can expand horizontally, so we can give you multiple web servers on the fly, and put a load balancer in front of it, and it can manage all of that.
And
whereas
we covered that in a previous Whiteboard Wednesday if you want to check that out.
That's right. So, and think about, okay, if I wanted to scale in this one, I'd have to buy more of this same hardware, and I have to put the load balancer out in front, and then am I going to need that load balancer in a down season?
Right.
There's just no way to tell.
And then a lot of times, right, you'll end up having one server for maybe 2 years, and then you realize you need to buy another server. So then you've got 2 different life cycles of servers that you're looking at.
Right.
And then eventually you're going to be at a point where you're just buying servers all the time to replace the old servers. If you have any sort of volume in terms of servers, we see this a lot with some of our clients that are making the move from the old world to the new world. That makes a lot of sense. Can you talk a little bit about how maybe someone might move from the old world to the new world? Or maybe let's save that for next time, because we've probably already gone past our 5 minutes. But I think this.
Hopefully, you're still watching.
Yeah, right.
Right now.
This gives a lot of insight into kind of where we came from, 10 years ago, and maybe even just 5 years ago, and what we're doing now with the cloud, and kind of some of the advantages that you guys can take by using the cloud.